Laura and Suraj grew up in the same town, but they couldn't have come from more different backgrounds. Laura was a Christian girl from a wealthy family, while Suraj was a Muslim boy from a working-class immigrant family. Despite their differences, Laura and Suraj fell in love when they were both teenagers. Laura and Suraj's paths crossed most unexpectedly. They met during a community event at the local park, where Laura was volunteering and Suraj was helping his mother sell homemade snacks. Their eyes met across the bustling crowd, and in that moment, an unspoken connection sparked between them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the park, Laura and Suraj found themselves drawn to each other like magnets. The laughter of children playing, and the chatter of families enjoying the event, faded into the background as they locked eyes for the first time. Suraj, with his easy smile and kind eyes, was unlike anyone Laura had ever met. Laura, with her vibrant spirit and infectious laughter, captivated Suraj in a way that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Their initial conversations were filled with nervous laughter and shy glances. They both knew that their love was a delicate flower, one that could easily be crushed by the expectations of their families. They knew that their families would never approve of their relationship, but they were young and in love. They thought that their love could conquer all. They started dating, but kept their relationship secret, sneaking around town to steal kisses and spend stolen moments together. They would meet after school, often at the park where they first met, sharing dreams and secrets under the sprawling branches of an old oak tree. It was their sanctuary, a place where they could be themselves, without the weight of the world pressing down on them. As the weeks went by, they found solace in each other's company. They found themselves drawn to each other more and more each day. They continued sharing stolen glances and shy smiles. As they spent more time together, their bond deepened. They began to talk more during brief encounters, discovering a shared love for music, art, and the thrill of adventure. Laura was captivated by Suraj's passion for painting and playing his guitar, while Suraj admired Laura's talent for playing the piano and singing. Suraj would often bring his guitar, strumming soft melodies while Laura sang along, her voice blending with the gentle rustle of leaves. Their conversations flowed effortlessly, and soon, they were spending every free moment together, exploring the town and sharing their dreams. Each moment felt like a treasure, a piece of their little world that they had created amidst the chaos of their lives. However, the reality of their families loomed over them like a dark cloud. Laura's parents had high expectations for her future, envisioning a life filled with privilege and prestige. They had always envisioned her with someone who was rich and could take care of her. They had already chosen a suitable partner for her, someone from their social circle who would uphold their family's reputation. Suraj's family, on the other hand, held traditional values close to their hearts, believing that he should marry within their community to preserve their cultural heritage. Despite the risk and pressures, Laura and Suraj's love blossomed. They found solace in each other's arms, believing that their love could transcend the barriers that society had placed before them. They would continue meeting in secret, often at a secluded spot in the park, where they could be themselves without fear of judgment. Their hearts raced with the thrill of their clandestine romance. They share whispered conversations under the stars, and dream of a future together where love could triumph over all. Each stolen moment felt like a rebellion against the world, a testament to their belief that love could conquer any obstacle, one where their families would accept them for who they were, not for their backgrounds. As they entered their senior year of high school, the weight of their secret began to take its toll. Laura's parents grew suspicious of her late nights and unexplained absences, while Suraj faced increasing pressure from his family to focus on his studies and prepare for an arranged marriage. The fear of being discovered loomed over them, yet they couldn't bear the thought of being apart. One fateful evening, as they shared a quiet moment during a picnic in the park, Suraj took Laura's hand in his. "What if we could be together openly?" he asked, his voice filled with hope. "What if we could show our families how real this is?" Laura's heart fluttered at the thought. but a wave of uncertainty washed over her. What if they don't understand? What if they try to keep us apart? She replied, her voice trembling. The fear of rejection loomed large, but the desire to be with Suraj burned brighter. We can figure it out together, Suraj said, his grip on her hand tightening. I believe in us. I believe in our love. With those words, Laura felt a flicker of courage ignite within her. They spent the next few weeks planning how to approach their families, rehearsing what they would say and how they would express their feelings. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but the thought of living in the shadows was unbearable. The day finally came when they decided to reveal their relationship when Laura's phone buzzed with a message from her mother. It was a simple question, but it sent a chill down her spine. Where are you? Suraj noticed her sudden change in demeanor and asked if everything was okay. Laura hesitated, knowing that the truth could shatter their world. Before she could respond, her phone rang, and she knew she had to answer. Taking a deep breath, Laura answered the call, her heart pounding in her chest. Hi, Mom, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Laura, where are you? We've been worried, her mother's voice came through, laced with concern. You didn't tell us you were going out. I'm just at the park with some friends, Laura replied, glancing at Suraj, who was watching her intently, his expression a mix of worry and support. Friends? Is Suraj there? Her mother asked, the tone of her voice shifting slightly. Laura felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She knew her mother well enough to sense the underlying tension in her question. Yes, he's here, Laura admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. She could feel Sora's gaze on her, urging her to be honest. But the fear of her mother's reaction loomed large. You need to come home. We need to talk. Right now. Her mother's voice was frantic. Panic surged through her as she realized they had been discovered. She exchanged a glance with Suraj, who reached out and squeezed her hand reassuringly. I'll be there in a minute, she said, her heart racing as she hung up the phone. She looked at Suraj, fear etched on her face. I have to go, she whispered, her heart breaking at the thought of leaving him. What did she say? Suraj asked, concern etched on his face. She wants me to come home. She sounded serious, Laura replied, her voice trembling. I think she knows something is up. Suraj's expression shifted from concern to determination. We can't let this moment slip away. You have to tell her about us, Laura. It's now or never. Laura felt a surge of fear and courage battling within her. What if she reacts badly? What if she doesn't understand? She whispered, her voice shaking. Then we'll face it together, Suraj said, his eyes filled with unwavering support. You're not alone in this. With a deep breath, Laura nodded, preparing herself for what lay ahead. As she hurried home, Laura's mind raced with thoughts of what would happen next. As she approached her home, Laura's heart raced with every step. She could already envision the confrontation, the disappointment in her parents' eyes, and the potential fallout. When she arrived, her parents were waiting at the door for her, their expressions a mix of anger and disappointment. Laura, where have you been? Her mother asked, her voice sharp. We need to talk about this. Laura's heart raced as she tried to explain. Laura took a deep breath. I need to tell you, she said, her voice steadying as she spoke. Suraj and I are together. We love each other. The silence that followed was deafening. Laura's mother's eyes widened in shock, and for a moment, it felt as if time had frozen. What do you mean, together? She asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. I mean, we're in a relationship, Laura replied, her heart racing. I know this might be hard for you to understand, but Suraj makes me happy. He's kind, and he cares about me. Laura, this isn't what we wanted for you, her mother said, her voice rising. You know our values, our traditions. This is not how we envisioned your future. You think this is just a phase? That you can just ignore everything we've taught you? No, Mom, Laura said, her voice breaking slightly. This isn't a phase. This is real. I can't change how I feel, and I don't want to hide anymore. I want you to understand that love doesn't have to fit into a box. Tears welled in her mother's eyes as she struggled to process the situation. What about your future? What about the life we planned for you? Laura took a step closer, her heart aching for her parents' pain. I want a future where I can be myself, where I can love who I choose. I hope you can see that this is about my happiness. The tension in the room was palpable, and for a moment, it felt as if the world had come to a standstill. But her words fell on deaf ears. Her father, a stern man with little patience for disobedience. You are no longer allowed to see him. Laura, this is unacceptable, he said, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Laura felt her heart drop. Dad, please. You can't just decide that for me, she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. I love Suraj. He's not just some boy. He's someone who makes me happy. Her father's expression hardened. Happiness? You think this is happiness? You're throwing away your future for a fleeting emotion. You need to think about your responsibilities and the life we've planned for you. Laura's mother looked torn, glancing between her husband and daughter. What about our traditions? Our culture? This isn't just about you, Laura. It's about our family, our community. Mom, I get that, Laura said, her voice rising in frustration. I can't live my life for someone else's expectations. I need to be true to myself. I want to be happy, and that means being with Suraj. Her father shook his head, his expression unyielding. You're being naive. You don't understand the consequences of your choices. You're still a child, and you need to respect our wishes. Dad, she said, her voice trembling. I'm asking you to try to understand. I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking for your acceptance. Love isn't something you can control or dictate. It's something that should be nurtured. Tears streamed down Laura's cheeks as she felt the walls closing in around her. I don't want to choose between you and Suraj. I love you both, but I can't change who I am or who I love. Her mother stepped forward, her voice softer now, filled with a mix of sorrow and concern. Laura, we just want what's best for you. We're scared of what this means for your future. I'm scared too, Laura admitted, her voice breaking. I can't live in fear of being myself. I need you to trust me. I need you to believe that I can make my own choices. The room fell silent again, the tension hanging thick in the air. Laura's father looked at her, his expression softening just a fraction. You're still young, Laura. You don't know what you're asking for. Maybe not, Laura replied, her voice steadier now. I know what I feel. I know that I want to be with Suraj. I hope you can find it in your hearts to accept that. Laura's mother wiped her tears, looking at her husband with a mixture of fear and hope. Maybe we need to give her a chance to show us, she said softly. Maybe we need to listen. Her father's expression remained conflicted. I'm a man of my word. I said this cannot and will not happen. You will break it off with him. End of discussion. Laura ran up the stairs to her room and slammed the door. Meanwhile, Suraj faced his turmoil. As Suraj stepped through the door of his family's modest home, the atmosphere was thick with tension. His mother sat at the dining table, her hands clasped tightly, while his father paced the room, his brow furrowed in anger. The moment Suraj entered the house, the questions began to fly. Is it true? His father demanded, stopping abruptly to face him. Are you involved with that girl? The one you met at the park? Suraj swallowed hard, his heart racing. Yes, Dad, I care about Laura. She's important to me. Important? His father scoffed, his voice rising. You think this is just some teenage fling? You're a man now, Suraj. You have responsibilities. You must marry someone from our community, someone who understands our values and traditions. Suraj felt a wave of frustration wash over him. Dad, I love her. Love isn't about community or tradition. It's about connection and understanding. Laura makes me happy. His mother interjected, her voice trembling. Suraj, we've raised you to honor our customs. You know how much this means to our family. What will our relatives think? What will they say? Mom, I can't live my life based on what others think or say. Suraj shot back, his voice filled with emotion. I want to be true to myself. I want to choose my path. His father's expression hardened. You think you can justify us? Do you think you can throw away everything we've worked for? You're being selfish, Suraj. this isn't just about you. It's about our family's honor. Suraj felt the weight of his father's words pressing down on him. I'm not trying to be selfish. I'm trying to be honest about who I am and who I love. I can't marry someone just because they fit a mold. That's not fair to me or them. His father stepped closer, his voice low and intense. You will marry a girl from our community, Suraj. You will honor our traditions. If you choose to pursue this relationship with that girl, you will be cutting ties with your family. Is that what you want? Suraj's heart sank at the thought of losing his family, but the thought of losing Laura felt even more unbearable. I don't want to choose between you and her. I love you all. His mother's eyes glistened with tears. We've sacrificed so much to give you a good life. I appreciate everything you've done for me, Suraj said, his voice softening. I need you to understand that my happiness matters too. I want to build a life with Laura, and I hope you can support me in that. His father shook his head, the disappointment etched on his face. You will marry a girl from our community and that's final. As Suraj left the room, he felt the weight of his family's expectations. Days turned into weeks, and the couple tried to stay away from each other, but they couldn't. The pull of their love was too strong. They were in love, and their love only grew stronger as the days passed. They began to meet in secret again, even though they knew it was dangerous. Suraj and Laura met in the quiet corners of the city, where the bustling crowds and the noise of life faded into the background. One night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, they shared a passionate kiss under the stars. I can't believe we're doing this again, Laura said, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked up at Suraj, her eyes reflecting both excitement and fear. What if someone sees us? Suraj took her hands in his, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. I know it's risky, but I can't stay away from you. Every day without you feels like an eternity. Laura smiled, her heart swelling with affection. I feel the same way. It's like we're two magnets, drawn to each other no matter how hard we try to resist. They shared a quiet laugh, but the weight of their situation suddenly hung heavily in the air. The laughter that had filled the air moments before was abruptly silenced as Laura's father emerged from the shadows, his face a storm of fury. Suraj's heart sank as he took in the sight of the man who had always been a figure of authority in Laura's life, now transformed into a menacing force. Laura, her father shouted, what are you doing here with him? I've been looking for you. Laura's heart raced, and she instinctively stepped closer to Suraj, seeking comfort in his presence. Dad, please, it's not what you think. Not what I think, he interrupted, his voice rising. You're with this boy? You know how I feel about him. You're throwing your life away for a foolish romance. Suraj felt a surge of protectiveness wash over him. Sir, please, I love your daughter. We're not doing anything wrong, love. Her father scoffed, his eyes narrowing. You think this is love? You're nothing but a distraction, a mistake she'll regret. Laura, you need to end this right now. Dad, I can't, Laura said, her voice trembling but resolute. I love Suraj, and I won't let you dictate my life anymore. The air crackled with tension as her father's face twisted in rage. You will break this off immediately, or you will no longer be my daughter. I will not have you tarnishing our family's name with this disgrace. Disgrace? Laura echoed, her voice rising in defiance. You're the one who's being disgraceful. You can't control who I love. Then so be it, her father spat, his voice cold and final. If you choose him over your family, then you are no longer welcome in my home. You are disowned. Laura's face fell, the weight of her father's words crashing down on her like a tidal wave. Dad, why does it have to be like this? She asked, tears welling in her eyes. I don't want to lose you. You've already lost me, he said, turning away in disgust. You've made your choice. With that, he stormed off, leaving Laura standing there, her heart shattered. Suraj stepped forward, wrapping his arms around her as she broke down in tears. I'm so sorry, Laura, he whispered, his heart aching for her pain. I never wanted this. I can't believe this is happening, she sobbed, leaning into him. I thought he would understand. I thought he would see how much I love you. Suraj held her tightly. We'll figure this out, I promise. With nowhere else to turn, Laura and Suraj were forced to leave their town and start a new life together. They packed their belongings and set off for a nearby city, hoping to start anew. The sun was just beginning to rise as they drove up to Laura's house. Her belongings were sitting out on the sidewalk. Laura and Suraj loaded the last of Laura's belongings into Suraj's old hatchback. The car was cramped, filled with boxes of clothes, a few cherished books, and a couple of framed photos that held memories of happier times. As they closed the trunk, Laura took one last look at the place she had called home, a place that now felt like a distant memory. Are you ready? Suraj asked, glancing at her with a mix of concern and determination. Laura nodded, though her heart felt heavy. I think so. It's just that everything happened so fast. I know, he replied softly, reaching for her hand. We'll make it work. This is a new beginning for us. With a deep breath, Laura climbed into the passenger seat, and Suraj slid behind the wheel. As they drove away, the familiar streets faded into the background, replaced by the open road ahead. The landscape changed from the small town charm of their past to the sprawling fields and distant hills that marked the journey to a new city. After a few hours, they arrived in the new city, its skyline looming in the distance. There they found a small apartment that had a for rent sign out front. After a brief conversation with the landlord, they were shown a modest one-bedroom unit. Laura suddenly felt rushed with excitement mixed with anxiety. A few weeks had passed when Laura suddenly became ill and had to be hospitalized. He watched helplessly as the vibrant girl he had fallen in love with faded before his eyes. Suraj held her hand tightly, whispering words of encouragement, but deep down, he feared that their love story might be coming to an end. Laura's illness was a mystery to the doctors, and despite their best efforts, her condition worsened. Suraj spent sleepless nights in the hospital, his heart heavy with worry. He felt the isolation of their love began to feel suffocating. He longed for the comfort of family and the warmth of acceptance, but he had sacrificed it all for Laura. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow through the hospital window, Laura stirred. She opened her eyes and smiled weakly at Suraj. Hey, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Suraj leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Hey, beautiful. How are you feeling? I don't know, she admitted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I just wish things were different. I wish we could go back to the park, to when everything felt so simple. Suraj's heart ached at her words. I wish that too. We can't change the past. We can only fight for our future. He squeezed her hand, trying to convey his unwavering support. Laura's expression turned serious. Suraj, I need you to promise me something if I don't make it. Don't talk like that. You're going to get better. We'll figure this out together, he insisted, his voice trembling. Promise me, she pressed, her gaze piercing through his bravado. Promise me that you'll live your life fully. Don't let my absence hold you back. You deserve happiness, even if it's not with me. Suraj felt a lump form in his throat. I can't imagine my life without you, Laura. You're my everything. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, You have to be strong for both of us. Promise me. With a heavy heart, Suraj nodded. I promise. Days turned into weeks and Laura's condition continued to decline. Suraj remained by her side, but the reality of their situation loomed over them like a dark cloud. He watched as the light in her eyes dimmed, and he felt powerless to change it. One fateful night, as the hospital buzzed with the sounds of machines and distant voices, Laura took a turn for the worse. Suraj was called into her room, where he found her struggling to breathe. He rushed to her side, holding her hand tightly. I'm here, Laura. I'm right here. With great effort, she turned her head to look at him, her eyes filled with love and sorrow. I'll always love you, Suraj. I love you too, Laura. Please, don't leave me, he pleaded, tears streaming down his face. As the monitors began to beep erratically, Laura's breathing became shallow. Suraj felt a wave of panic wash over him. "Stay with me, please," he cried, but deep down, he knew the truth. With one final, shuddering breath, Laura closed her eyes and slipped away, leaving Suraj alone in the world they had fought so hard to create. The silence that followed was deafening, and he felt as if his heart had been ripped from his chest. As Laura lay lifeless in Suraj's arms, he couldn't bear the thought of living without her. He begged and pleaded with her to come back to him, but it was too late. In the days that followed, Suraj was consumed by grief. He honored Laura's memory by taking the long drive to their hometown to visit the park, where they had shared so many dreams. He sat on a bench, reflecting on their love, the challenges they faced, and the sacrifices they made. He remembered her laughter, her passion for music, and the way she had made him feel alive. Determined to keep her spirit alive, Suraj poured his heart into painting, creating pieces that captured their love story. He created masterpieces of the joy, the pain, and the beauty of their connection. Even though he was doing everything he could to keep going, nothing seemed to be working. He still felt a void in life without her. Just as he was about to give up hope, he remembered something that his grandmother had told him when he was a child. She had spoken of a powerful and mysterious healing ritual that had been passed down through generations of their family. It was said to be able to bring the dead back to life, but it had never been performed successfully in modern times. The ritual was steeped in ancient traditions, requiring not only a deep understanding of the spiritual realm, but also a pure heart and unwavering intent. He had always dismissed it as folklore, a tale meant to entertain children, but now, in the depths of his despair, it felt like a glimmer of hope. Suraj began to research the ritual. He scoured old family journals and dusty books. The more he learned, the more he felt a connection to his ancestors and their beliefs. He discovered that the ritual required specific elements, sacred herbs, a personal item from the deceased, and a gathering of loved ones to channel their collective energy. Desperate for any glimmer of hope, Suraj decided to try the ritual. He enlisted the help of his grandmother, who had performed it once before in her youth. He also gathered a few friends to help as well. He explained his intentions, sharing the depth of his love for Laura, and the hope that this ritual could bring her back. Some were skeptical, but others felt moved by his passion and grief. No matter their beliefs, they agreed to stand by his side. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the fountain in the park where they had chosen to gather. With them, they brought candles, herbs, and a small empty vial. This was where he and Laura had spent countless hours, searching for the perfect stones and flowers that held meaning for them. He found a small, smooth stone that Laura had once picked up, claiming it brought her good luck. He also collected wildflowers that bloomed along the edge of the park, their vibrant colors reminiscent of Laura's spirit. He then collected a small vial of water from the fountain where they had shared countless memories. Each item held significance, a thread connecting him to the love they had shared. Suraj's grandmother, a wise woman with deep-rooted knowledge of their family's traditions, led the group. She spoke softly, her voice a soothing balm against the tension in the air. Together, they took the long drive back to the hospital and performed the intricate ritual that lasted for hours. As they lit the candles, the flickering flames danced in the room, illuminating the faces of those who had come to support him. They then arranged the vial of water, flowers, and stones in a way that honored Laura's memory. They then moved Laura's bed away from the wall and created a circle around her as Suraj held the small stone tightly in his hand, feeling its warmth and the connection it represented. His grandmother began to chant, her voice rising and falling like the tide, weaving a tapestry of words that resonated with the very essence of life and love. Suraj and his friends began to chant, after his grandmother chanted one time through. At that very moment, Suraj felt a surge of energy in the air as they continued the incantation. He closed his eyes, focusing on Laura's laughter, her smile, and the love they had shared. He poured every ounce of his heart into the ritual, calling out to the universe to bring her back to him. As the chant grew louder, the wind picked up, swirling around them like a gentle caress. And for a moment, Suraj felt a presence. It was a warmth that enveloped him, a whisper of hope. He opened his eyes, and the candles flickered wildly, casting dancing shadows on the ground. The air was thick with anticipation, and he could feel the collective energy of everyone around him, their love and grief intertwining. As the ritual came to an end, Laura's body began to stir. At first, Suraj thought he was imagining things, but then he saw her eyes flutter open. He couldn't believe it. His love had been brought back from the dead. Suraj's heart raced as he knelt beside Laura, disbelief and joy flooding his senses. The world around him faded into a blur. All he could focus on was the woman he thought he had lost forever. Her eyes, once closed in eternal slumber, now sparkled with life, reflecting the moonlight that danced on the river's surface. "Laura?" he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, half expecting this to be a dream from which he would awaken. The warmth of her skin beneath his fingers felt real, grounding him in this miraculous moment. Laura was weak and disoriented at first, but she slowly regained her strength. Laura blinked, her gaze slowly adjusting to the light. Confusion flickered across her features as she took in her surroundings. The circle of friends and Suraj's grandmother stood close. The candles flickered in the night. "Suraj?" she murmured, her voice soft and fragile, as if she were testing the sound of it after a long silence. Tears streamed down Suraj's face as he nodded, unable to form words. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as if afraid she might slip away again. The warmth of her body against his felt like a balm to his aching heart, and he could hardly believe that the ritual had worked. The group around them erupted with a mix of shock and joy. How is this possible?" Laura asked, her voice still laced with confusion. She looked at Suraj, searching his eyes for answers. I remember being gone." Suraj took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "I thought I lost you, Laura. I thought I would never see you again. I performed a ritual. I didn't know if it would work, but I had to try. I had to bring you back." Laura's expression softened as she processed his words. "You did this for me?" she asked, her voice filled with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "I was gone, Suraj. I felt free." "I know," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't let go. I couldn't accept a world without you." As the reality of the situation settled in, Laura's eyes widened. "What does this mean? What happens now?" Suraj pulled back slightly, looking deep into her eyes. "It means we have a second chance at life and love. We can create new memories and live the life we always dreamed of. I need to know something first." "What is it, Suraj? Are you truly here with me? Are you back for good?" Laura hesitated, her brow furrowing as she searched for the right words. "I feel different, Suraj. I feel I've changed somehow. I don't know what this means for us, but I do know that I love you, and I want to understand it." Suraj nodded, his heart swelling with hope. "Then let's figure it out together. We have time now. We can explore this new beginning, whatever it may be." They embraced each other once more. Suraj felt a renewed sense of purpose, a determination to cherish every moment with Laura. That evening, the stars twinkled above them as they returned home. Laura turned to Suraj, her eyes reflecting the light of the cosmos. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" she asked softly. Suraj smiled, squeezing her hand. "I believe that love transcends all boundaries, even time. Whatever comes next, I know we will face it together." Laura nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I feel so lucky to have you by my side. You gave me a second chance at life, and I want to make every moment count." With that, they leaned into each other, their foreheads touching, sharing a silent promise that their love would endure, no matter what lay ahead. They had been given a gift that few could comprehend, and they vowed to honor it every day. They lived the rest of their lives together. They never forget the miracle that had brought them back together. It was their love that had kept them together and kept them going. They died together when the time came for them to part from the world, and they did so with acceptance.